Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming up next in our Hydration with Heart segment, brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. Today, we're refeaturing my dear friend, Brooke Eby. She's a courageous, determined, beautiful young woman diagnosed with ALS back in March of 2022. She hopes to spread awareness of ALS to as many people as possible and laugh along the way, which she does. Although the mean survival time with ALS is shorter than we'd like, some people can in fact live much longer. Symptoms can begin in the muscles that control speech and swallowing, or in the hands, arms, legs, or feet. ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, is a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. For about 90% of all cases, there's no known family history of the disease or presence of a genetic mutation linked to ALS. Only for about 5 to 10% of all cases, there is in fact a known family history of the disease, and this is often called familial ALS. Well, here to chat more and hear directly from patient herself, making a difference, how to stay positive amidst a terminal illness, is the amazing Brooke Eby. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you so much for having me again. I love being back.
I love having you. You are such a ray of sunshine. Can you share your diagnosis and how it has evolved, and what is the current prognosis for you?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed over 2 years ago now. It was March of 2022. And at the time, they told me, I'd been having symptoms prior to that for 4 years, which is slower than they're used to seeing. So they said, you've been a slow progressor so far. We don't really expect that to change. So we're not going to give you any kind of timeline or time frame. We're just going to sort of track you and check in every 3 months. So since then, 2 years ago, since that diagnosis, I'm now in a wheelchair full time. My legs, pretty much for decoration at this point. My left arm is getting weaker, and then in the last couple months, I've seen a decline in my lungs, which is one of the scarier ones. But it basically means, like, because my diaphragm is so weak, like my core is so weak, I don't have a lot of power behind breathing and coughing and those types of things. So to me, quite a bit has changed in the last couple of years, and yet I'm still considered a slow progressor, which is just mind-blowing.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And I know studies to develop more treatments and a cure for ALS, many funded by the ALS Association, are ongoing around the world. In fact, scientists have made significant progress in understanding how the disease works, identifying biological indicators that can help diagnose and treat, but there's still so much work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
There is a lot of hope, but facing such a challenging prognosis, how do you find the strength to remain so positive and hopeful every day? I see you out there on social media with a great big smile on your face, making light of everything. You're full of life,
Yeah.
smiling and seeming to be coping better than most in your situation. How important is mindset?
So after I got diagnosed, I was depressed for probably 2, 3 months. And then after a couple months, I was like, this is kind of boring. Like, being sad for long periods of time. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. And so I think my personality just started to sort of creep back in as I got used to everything. And for me, that's always meant jokes, like just treating everything with humor, even if it's the most serious thing in the world. I just have never been able to take anything seriously. So that's helped me quite a bit in that I can, laugh at some of the things happening to me because, I'm 35 now. When you're 35 with a disease that's taking away your ability to do very normal things, like sometimes all you can do is laugh. But I'm also really lucky in that I have, really close family, really great group of friends. Like, I have those building blocks, I think, that allow me to just focus on the ALS problem as opposed to worrying about, how am I going to pay for this medication and how am I going to get from point A to point B. Like, I have a support system in place. I also think social media has helped quite a bit. Like, I think a lot of people see the negativity on social media, and you see mean comments, and how it can tear people down. But sharing my story has really, one, it's desensitized me, and I feel like I can talk about ALS and not, get depressed just by talking about it. Like, I think I can now have conversations about really hard things, and it doesn't make me sad. It's just, conversation and learning. But I've also seen such strong support from internet strangers. Like, it's unbelievable. If you look through my comments, I don't know any of these people, and they're cheering me on day in and day out.
And as Charles Lindbergh said, success is not measured by what a man accomplishes, but by the opposition he has encountered and the courage with which he has maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. And that's what you're doing. And I'm really, really proud to see you day in, day out, keep a positive mindset, whether you're getting help from social media or your friends or family. The best medicine for this is mindset, and you've got it. Now, you continue to be an incredible advocate for ALS awareness and fundraising. What drives you to keep pushing forward?
Yeah, I think what drives me, it's interesting. I actually think that it's easier to want to fight for other people than it is for yourself. And I don't know if that's like a psychological thing or if that's like a woman caretaking type feeling, but I sometimes will get a little bit apathetic, and then I'll talk to one of my friends who has ALS or someone in my support group who has ALS, and it sort of recharges me to be like, okay, this isn't, you're not fighting for you. Like, you're fighting for an entire population of people who, have historically been forgotten, and ALS can silence you. Like, you can lose your voice, you can lose, the ability to go out of your house. So many people are just fighting this disease in behind closed doors. And so I've just decided to keep being as loud as I can, and try to be a voice for people who have lost theirs.
And outside of the wheelchair, is there anything that you find yourself struggling to do on your upper body?
Everything. It's like, it's so bizarre because I watch videos of myself, a few years ago, and I'm like, I took everything for granted. Like, waking up and getting out of bed now takes me like 10 minutes, which I guess doesn't sound that long, but compared to 10 seconds, it feels a lot longer. Going to the bathroom, I like dread doing because you have to transfer out of your wheelchair onto the toilet or into the shower to go shower. Like, there's just so many things that take, it's a production. Everything's a production now. So I've been requiring more and more help these days.
Well, thank you for being so transparent. And well, you have a great support system, so I know you've got help there. Now, let's chat available treatments and therapies for ALS, and what does the research look like, and what can people do to help?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the research from the patient side because I think on the medical side, if you talk to, the scientists and the doctors and the researchers, they're constantly working, they're constantly learning and understanding more about this disease. But from the patient side, it hasn't really translated yet. So for us, we still have the same, only two approved medications. We actually had three, I think, the last time I spoke with you, and then one got pulled back because it was found to be ineffective. So we're down to two medications. Both are expected to extend your lifespan by, few months or a percentage of time, which, isn't all that exciting, isn't much to hang your hat on. So from the patient side, really nothing's changed. I think if you were to talk to the researchers, they'd probably say a lot has changed in the last couple of years, and there, more and more trials are happening, more attention is being given. But all I can really see is, when I go to the doctor, they say there's nothing else we can do for you. So the way I've been approaching it is really through fundraising. I think that it's an underfunded disease for relative to how quick and how terminal it is. So my goal has just been raising money, and I switch off which organizations I give money to just to diversify our luck a little bit. But yeah, I think money is like the best way I can control at this point.
When you speak to your doctors and you ask them, what is my timeline? What do they say to you?
I don't really ask them that because I think unless it were under a year, I don't think I would want to know. I think now it's more, just tracking my progress. I'm sure they could give me a timeline if I asked, but unless it's imminent, I don't want to know.
And whenever, those conversations will happen naturally when they're supposed to happen. But in
Yeah,
the meantime, it's all about fundraising and really trekking forward to get as much research, um, funding, as much money to fund the research so
right.
that we can make some progress. Now, can you share some of the most memorable moments or achievements from this advocacy work over the past 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many highlights. I wish, eventually I'll make some sort of highlight reel of everything that's gone on. But um, a year ago, we did a fundraiser. So May is ALS Awareness Month. So for the last 2 years, I've done a post a day in May, just answering people's questions and, answering comments. And I wrap it up by doing a fundraiser. And last year, the fundraiser, I think because it was like the first time I had done one, we raised very, very quickly. I think we hit 70K. And then I had
Wow.
I think I had, yeah, we had hit 70. And then a stranger reached out and said they would match it if we hit 100, which is mind blowing. It was just a stranger from the internet. I was not even sure if it was real or not. But as soon as we hit 100, they matched it. So that was like one of the craziest experiences. And we have a fundraiser going right now too, although I think second time's a little less sparkly than the first. Also, I've gotten to throw out first pitches. I've gotten to speak at a bunch of events. Like, there's been a lot of fun experiences that I wouldn't have had without ALS.
I definitely have seen all of them, and I
Some
root for
bad
you.
pitches in that lineup.
No, 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 you did great. Now, are you participating in any clinical trials for ALS treatment?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was diagnosed 4 years into symptoms, which is on the slower side. Although ALS is very hard to diagnose, but you can only join trials if you're under 2 years of symptoms. So by the time I was diagnosed, I was already ruled out of trials. But they started doing something called expanded access, like compassionate care, I think was the law that was put into place. And that means that patients who are beyond that 2 year mark can still get access to the trial drug. Their data just won't go back into the trial. So right now I am on a trial drug. I've been on it for a year. I don't know that it's doing anything, but sometimes it feels good just to be proactive and doing something.
Then nothing, right?
So not so much trials. I am participating in some research studies just so they can learn more about what's going on with ALS, try to figure out why it happens, how quickly, like why certain people are quicker than others. There's just so much unknown.
Yeah, without a doubt. How has your perspective on life and time changed since your diagnosis, and what lessons have you learned that you'd like others to understand?
There's so many. I think before I was diagnosed, I was kind of like confused, I think, at life. I was just really focused on work. I didn't really understand my purpose. I was just sort of going through the motions, but when you don't have a purpose, like it's almost frustrating because you don't really know what you're charging towards. I'm like, I guess I'm just trying to get promoted at work. I didn't really know what I was working for, or working towards. And then once I was diagnosed, I think everything kind of fell into place. Like now I understand what I want to achieve in the next few years. And a lot of that has to do with driving awareness and driving money towards ALS. So I think it's mostly like perspective and then also how I spend my time. I want to spend as much time with people that I love, so family and friends, and don't stress yourself out too much with things that don't matter, is like usually what I'm telling my friends quite a bit these days.
Those are wise words, my dear. And the
Yeah.
tests we face in life's journey are not to reveal our weaknesses, but to help us discover our inner strengths. And you can only know how strong you are when you strive and thrive beyond the challenges you face. And that's what you're doing. So
Yeah.
this is very telling. Now, how do you manage your symptoms? I know you don't maintain your independence anymore, but how do you manage your symptoms?
Yeah, so now I have a caregiver who comes and helps me. Really, the things I need help with are like places where I feel unsafe. So, like transferring into the shower, pretty much anything in a bathroom scenario, I think is the most dangerous for people with limited mobility because, like, everything is sharp and hard, and there's like no safe place to fall in a bathroom. So, she helps me quite a bit, getting in and out of the shower, and also just like helping me take care of myself. I think I she takes better care of me than I think I've ever taken care of me. Like she makes sure I'm eating constantly. She's making sure that I'm like putting on lotion, like little things that, just you sort of put by the wayside when you're busy all day. Like sometimes I would be like, "Oh, I don't think I ate lunch today." And she's like, "Oh my god." So it's just like a lot of taking care of me
Well,
tasks.
I love that you have that.
Yeah.
And finally, we are almost at the end of this interview, and I've enjoyed speaking with you. And thank you for being so transparent and honest and humble. What advice do you have for someone receiving an ALS diagnosis?
My first piece of advice is don't Google anything because that was the first thing that I did. I remember I'd Google it and I'd read like the two bullet points and then I would close out the window and be like, oh my God, it's just Google isn't sympathetic, it's just factual. So there's no need, you don't need to look at Google. Now I think there's a resource called Roon, ROON, where a bunch of people from the ALS community, so like patients, doctors, researchers, caregivers, are all answering questions. So if you have any questions about ALS, you can go on to Roon, and then there's like a I was just diagnosed guide. What do I need to know? And they'll take you through it. And it's people like me, people, like my doctors who are going through it, and I think can hopefully be a little bit more comforting than Google can. And then find a support group is like my advice to anyone going through anything in life.
You are saying the same thing that everyone else in your similar predicament, in their own unique similar predicament, has said. It's always
Oh,
about community, it's always about mindset, and it's about staying positive and fundraising because you have
yeah,
to remain active with your cause.
yeah.
We are at the end of this interview, my dear. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a
Thank
pleasure chatting
you.
with you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
All the energy in the universe is evenly present in all places at the same time. We don't get energy, we release energy. And the triggering mechanism to release energy is desire. When you have a strong desire to do something, you will always have the energy to do it. That was our Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut. That was the incredible, the beautiful Brooke Eby. Check her out on the gram at Limp Bruise Kit, LIMPBROOZKIT. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, 100% pure coconut water. Imagine a drink that's nutrient rich, powerfully refreshing, naturally sweet with no added sugars, not from concentrate, zero additives, low in calories, absolutely no artificial flavors, and is so tasty that it will become your new favorite beverage. Enter Once Upon a Coconut, the absolute best tasting coconut water you will ever try. Available in 4 refreshing flavors: pure, chocolate, pineapple, and sparkling with energy. Do your taste buds a favor and pick up some today at onceuponacoconut.com.